What happens when a controversial prince meets America's most outspoken talk show host, and the conversation spirals completely out of control? Tonight, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had everyone talking, where Prince Harry found himself in the hot seat, facing Bill Maher's relentless questioning, leading to one of the most uncomfortable television moments in recent memory. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story gets more intense with every minute. The studio lights blazed down on Bill Maher as he leaned back in his chair, that familiar smirk playing across his face. Prince Harry had just taken his place across from him, adjusting his jacket with what seemed like nervous energy. The audience was buzzing with anticipation, knowing that when Maher had a high-profile guest like this, anything could happen. So Harry Maher began, his voice carrying that signature blend of curiosity and mischief. Let's talk about your new life in California. You've gone from palace to Montecito Mansion. How's that working out for you? Harry straightened up clearly, prepared for this line of questioning. Well, Bill, it's been liberating, actually. For the first time in my life, I can make my own decisions without having to ask permission from an institution that's centuries old. Liberating, Maher repeated, nodding slowly. That's interesting, because most people would say you traded one institution for another. Now, instead of answering to the Queen, you answer to Netflix executives and Spotify producers. How is that different exactly? The audience chuckled, and Harry's jaw tightened slightly. I think there's a fundamental difference between choosing your partnerships and having your entire life dictated by protocol and tradition that serves no one in the modern world. Right, Maher said, leaning forward. But here's what I don't understand. You grew up with incredible privilege, had access to the best education, traveled the world, and had a platform that billions of people would kill for. Then you leave all of that to come to America and complain about how hard your life was. Don't you think that comes across as a little, tone deaf? Harry's face flushed slightly. Bill, with respect, you're oversimplifying a very complex situation. Yes, I had privilege, but I also had no privacy, no autonomy, and watched my mother destroyed by the same system that was supposed to protect her. Okay, but your mother, Maher interrupted, his tone shifting slightly more serious. Princess Diana was beloved by people around the world. She used her platform to highlight important causes, to bring attention to landmines, to AIDS patients, to people who needed a voice. She found a way to work within the system to make a difference. Why couldn't you do the same thing? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Harry's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Because the system killed her, Bill. The constant harassment, the paparazzi, the inability to live a normal life. I wasn't going to let that happen to my wife and children, but that's where I'm confused. Maher pressed on, clearly sensing he had hit a nerve. You say you wanted privacy, but then you do a tell-all interview with Oprah that's watched by millions. You write a best-selling memoir sharing the most intimate details of your family's private conversations. You do a Netflix documentary series. That doesn't sound like someone who wants privacy. That sounds like someone who wants control over the narrative. Harry shifted uncomfortably. Sometimes you have to tell your own story before others tell it for you. Or sometimes, Maher shot back, you just want to cash in on the drama. Let's be honest here, Harry. The royal family. For all their faults, they could have cut you off completely when you left. Instead, you're still using your titles. You're still trading on your royal connection for these media deals. You can't have it both ways. The audience was completely silent now, sensing the tension building between the two men. Harry's voice rose slightly. I'm not trading on anything. I'm sharing my truth about a system that's broken and needs to change. Your truth, Maher repeated, air quotes and all. See, that phrase drives me crazy. There's not your truth and my truth. There's just truth. And the truth is, you've made millions of dollars talking about how terrible your privileged life was, while there are people in this country who can't afford health care, who are working 3 jobs just to survive. Do you see why some people might find that a little hard to swallow? Harry's face was getting redder. You think I don't care about people who are struggling? I've spent my entire adult life working with veterans, with mental health organizations, with people who need help. Yes, and that's great, Maher acknowledged. But you've also spent a lot of time talking about your own problems on platforms that pay you millions of dollars. There's a difference between advocacy and self-promotion. I'm not self-promoting, Harry snapped. I'm trying to break cycles of trauma and pain that have affected my family for generations. Maher laughed, but not in a friendly way. Break cycles of trauma, Harry. You're a prince. You have more resources to deal with trauma than 90% of the world's population. You can afford the best therapists, the best treatment, the best everything. Most people dealing with trauma don't have those options. Money doesn't solve everything, Bill. No, but it sure helps, Mark replied. And here's what really gets me. You talk about breaking cycles, but what you've really done is create a new cycle. Instead of quietly working within the system to change it, like your mother tried to do, you've turned family dysfunction into a business model. How is that breaking anything? The studio had gone completely quiet. Even the cameras seemed to be holding their breath. Harry leaned forward, his voice tight with anger. You have no idea what you're talking about. You've never lived under that kind of scrutiny, that kind of pressure. You've never had your every move analyzed and criticized from the moment you were born. You're right, Maher said, his voice calm but cutting. I've never had that experience. But I also never had a trust fund worth millions, or palaces to live in, or the ability to meet world leaders whenever I wanted. Everyone has problems, Harry, but not everyone has your advantages to solve them. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Harry's face had gone from slightly flushed to visibly angry, and Maher seemed to be enjoying every second of it. The audience watched in stunned silence as these two men faced off. Look, Bill, Harry said, trying to regain his composure. I understand that you make a living being provocative, but what you're doing right now is exactly the kind of thing that drove me away from that life in the first place. This constant need to tear people down, to find fault with everything. Maher raised an eyebrow. Oh, so now I'm the problem, not the guy who aired his family's dirty laundry on international television. Harry, I'm just asking questions that millions of people are thinking. If you can't handle basic scrutiny about your choices, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Basic scrutiny? Harry's voice cracked slightly. You're attacking my mother's memory, questioning my motives, and dismissing legitimate concerns about mental health and institutional racism. Whoa, 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 Maher held up his hands. When did I attack your mother? I said she was beloved and used her platform effectively. And institutional racism. Where did that come from? We weren't even talking about that. It's all connected, Bill. The way the media treated Meghan, the way the institution failed to protect her, the way people like you continue to minimize our experiences because it's inconvenient to your narrative. Maher leaned back, a look of genuine surprise on his face. People like me. What does that mean exactly? Harry's eyes flashed. People who benefit from systems of privilege while criticizing others for speaking out against those same systems. You make jokes about institutional problems because addressing them seriously would require you to examine your own position. My position? Maher's voice was getting sharper now. Harry, I've been calling out institutional problems for decades. I've criticized the church, the government, the media, corporate America. The difference is, I don't expect to get paid millions of dollars for doing it, and I don't claim to be a victim while I'm doing it. I never claimed to be a victim. Really, because that's all I've heard from you for the past few years. The royal family was mean to you. The media was unfair. The institution was racist. At what point do you take responsibility for your own choices instead of blaming everyone else? Harry shot up from his chair, his composure finally breaking completely. Take responsibility. I took responsibility by leaving. I took responsibility by protecting my family. I took responsibility by speaking out against a system that's broken. No, you took the easy way out, Maher shot back, also standing now. You could have stayed and fought to change things from the inside. You could have used your position to make real change instead of just complaining about it from California. Easy way out. Harry's voice was rising to near shouting levels. Do you have any idea how hard it was to walk away from everything I'd ever known? To give up my military titles, my patronages, my relationship with my family? Oh, please. Maher waved his hand dismissively. You gave up your royal duties and got a $100 million Netflix deal. That's not sacrifice, that's a career change. The audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This had gone way beyond typical late-night television banter, into genuinely hostile territory. You know what your real problem is, Bill? Harry said, pointing a finger at the host. You can't stand that someone actually had the courage to walk away from a corrupt system instead of just making jokes about it from the sidelines. Corrupt system, Maher laughed harshly. Harry, you're talking about the British monarchy like it's some criminal organization. These are your grandparents we're talking about. Your father? Your brother? Are you seriously calling your own family corrupt? I'm calling the institution corrupt, not the people. But the people run the institution. You can't separate them. And here's what I really don't understand. If the system is so corrupt, why are you still using the titles? Why are you still Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan? If you really wanted to make a clean break, wouldn't you drop the royal titles altogether? Harry's mouth opened and closed like he was searching for words. It's complicated. No, it's not complicated at all, Maher pressed. You want to keep the perks and the prestige while avoiding the responsibilities. You want to be royal when it benefits you and a regular person when it doesn't. That's not true, isn't it? When you're negotiating contracts with Netflix and Spotify, you're the Duke of Sussex. When people criticize your choices, you're just Harry trying to live a normal life. Which is it? Harry was pacing now, clearly agitated. You're twisting everything I say. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just pointing out the contradictions in your story. You say you want privacy, but you do tell all interviews. You say you want to help people, but you charge speaking fees that most charities can't afford. You say you left for your family's safety, but then you share intimate details about them in your book. I shared those details to provide context for why we had to leave. Or maybe you shared them because Random House paid you $20 million for the book, Maher countered. Let's not pretend this is all altruistic. Harry, you've built a brand around being the royal who got out, and that brand is worth a lot of money. Harry stopped pacing and stared at Maher with barely contained fury. You have no idea what it's like to have your entire life scrutinized, to have every decision questioned, to have people make assumptions about your motives when they don't know anything about your situation. Actually, I do know what that's like, Maher replied calmly. I've been in the public eye for decades. The difference is, I chose this life. You were born into yours, but then you also chose to stay in the public eye in a different way. You can't have it both ways. I didn't choose to be born into the royal family. No, but you chose how to handle it as an adult. And the way you've handled it is to monetize your grievances while claiming you just want to be left alone. Do you see why people find that hypocritical? Harry's hands were clenched into fists at his sides. I'm done with this conversation. Oh, now you want to leave. Maher's voice was dripping with sarcasm. That's your solution to everything, isn't it? When things get uncomfortable, just walk away. I'm not walking away from anything important. You walked away from your military career, your charitable work in the UK, your relationship with your brother, your role in the Commonwealth. At what point do you stop running and start dealing with your problems like an adult? The words hung in the air like a slap across the face. Harry's entire body went rigid, his face turning a shade of red that was almost purple. The audience collectively gasped, sensing that this had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Dealing with my problems like an adult, Harry's voice was barely controlled, shaking with rage. Like an adult. Bill, I served 2 tours in Afghanistan while you were making jokes on television. I've worked with wounded veterans, started mental health initiatives, and tried to make a difference in the world. What have you done besides criticize people? From behind a desk, Maher's eyes lit up with the thrill of the fight. What have I done? I've called out hypocrisy wherever I see it, including yours. And right now, what I see is a man who can't handle being challenged without throwing a tantrum. This isn't a tantrum. This is me standing up to a bully who thinks he can say whatever he wants because he has a television show. A bully, Maher laughed, but it wasn't friendly anymore. Harry, I'm asking you basic questions about your public statements and actions. If that feels like bullying to you, maybe the problem isn't me. Harry took a step closer to Maher's desk, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You want to know what the real problem is? The real problem is people like you who have never had to make the kinds of difficult decisions I've had to make, sitting in judgment like you have all the answers. Difficult decisions. Maher stood up straighter, matching Harry's intensity. You mean like deciding whether to take the Netflix money or the Spotify money? Those kinds of difficult decisions? The audience was dead silent now, everyone sensing that this was spiraling completely out of control. Even the cameras seemed to be capturing something that felt too real, too raw for television. You know what, Bill? I came here thinking I could have an honest conversation about important issues, but all you want to do is score cheap points and make your audience laugh at my expense. No, Harry, what you wanted was to come here and get softball questions. That would let you promote your latest project without any real scrutiny. But that's not how this works. When you put yourself in the public eye, you don't get to control the conversation. I'm not trying to control anything. I'm trying to have a respectful dialogue. Respectful. Maher's voice was getting louder. You just accused me of being a bully and suggested I haven't contributed anything to society. How is that respectful? Harry's composure snapped completely. Because you haven't contributed anything. All you do is tear people down and make cynical jokes about serious issues. You're part of the problem, not the solution. Part of the problem? Maher's face was flushed now too. I've been fighting against institutional corruption and hypocrisy for 30 years. The difference is, I don't expect to get paid millions of dollars for it, and I don't whine when people disagree with me. I'm not whining, I'm defending myself. Against unfair attacks. Unfair attacks. Harry, everything I've said tonight is based on your own public statements and actions. If pointing out contradictions in your story feels like an attack, maybe you need to examine why your story has so many contradictions. Harry was visibly shaking now, his voice cracking with emotion. My story has contradictions because life is complicated, Bill. Because sometimes you have to make impossible choices between bad options. Because sometimes protecting your family means disappointing other people. And sometimes, Maher shot back, making millions of dollars means telling people what they want to hear instead of what they need to hear. Which one are you doing right? Now, Harry? That was the final straw. Harry's face contorted with fury as he pointed directly at Maher. You know what? I'm done. I'm done with this interview. I'm done with your questions. And I'm done pretending that this is anything other than a hit job designed to humiliate me for your entertainment. Oh, now it's a hit job. Maher's voice was dripping with disdain. Because I asked you to explain your own choices and statements? Harry, if you can't handle basic questions about your public life, maybe you shouldn't be giving interviews at all. Maybe you're right, Harry said, his voice suddenly quiet, but still seething. Maybe I shouldn't waste my time talking to people who have already made up their minds about me. I haven't made up my mind about anything, Maher replied. I'm trying to understand how someone with your advantages and opportunities ended up feeling so sorry for himself. The words hit like a physical blow. Harry's face went completely white, then red again. Sorry for myself. You think this is about feeling sorry for myself, isn't it? Your whole narrative is about how hard your life has been, how unfairly you've been treated, how the system failed you. That sounds like self-pity to me. Harry's voice rose to almost a shout. It's not self-pity, it's accountability. It's calling out a system that protects itself at the expense of the people it's supposed to serve. And making a fortune while you do it, everything comes back to money with you, doesn't it? You can't imagine that someone might have principles that aren't motivated by profit. I can imagine it, Maher said coldly. I just haven't seen any evidence of it from you. The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Harry stood there for a long moment, staring at Maher with a mixture of rage and disbelief. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, but carried more venom than all his shouting. You know what, Bill? This conversation tells me everything I need to know about you, and nothing I didn't already know about myself. I came here in good faith, trying to have an honest discussion about important issues, and you turned it into a circus for your own amusement. Harry Maher began, but the prince cut him off. No, I'm talking now. You spend your career mocking people who are trying to make a difference, tearing down anyone who dares to challenge systems of power. And then you act surprised when they push back. You're not a truth teller, Bill. You're just another entertainer, profiting off other people's pain. Maher's face darkened. At least I'm honest about what I am. I don't pretend to be a humanitarian while cashing checks from streaming services. Harry started walking toward the edge of the stage, his voice carrying back over his shoulder, and I don't pretend to be a journalist while conducting character assassinations for applause. Where are you going, Harry? Maher called after him. We're not finished here. Harry turned back one final time, his voice cutting through the stunned silence of the studio. Yes, we are. This interview is over, just like this conversation. just like any respect I might have had for you or this show. You can't just leave in the middle of an interview." "Watch me," Harry replied, and with that, he walked off the set. Leaving Bill Maher standing alone at his desk, the audience in shocked silence, and television history forever changed. The cameras kept rolling for another few seconds, capturing Maher's stunned expression as he realized what had just happened. When he finally spoke, his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Well, I guess that's one way to end an interview." This explosive confrontation between Prince Harry and Bill Maher shows what happens when two strong personalities clash over fundamental questions of privilege, responsibility, and public accountability. The raw emotion and genuine anger on display created one of the most uncomfortable and unforgettable moments in recent television history. What did you think of Harry's decision to walk off the show? Was Maher's questioning fair, or did he go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And make sure to subscribe for more stories that dive deep into the most dramatic moments in entertainment.